Let's not get weird. Let's not get weird. Connor said no. Weird. Said no, thank you. All right, we're going to do a podcast here, boys and girls. All right. We're going to talk about the Burrowers. The prequel, which was like a weird situation. You know what? You know what we could also do? I didn't think about this. Ginger Snaps Back.
Oh yeah.
Because that's I don't know if you call that a Western because it was like colonial era, right? But it was no.
Hi, Krista.
Easily the weakest of the Ginger Snaps franchise. Krista, how are you, babe? I'm gonna unscrew myself here. Okay, we ready to do a podcast?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Mic's on?
Mic's on.
Thank you. Hey, thank you guys, Psycho Bunnies, for joining us. We're going to talk to you about a little horror movie called The Burrowers. If you had 2 clips, it would be cool. It's weird that she only does one side, right? I'm going to either 2 clips or no clips. I got to tell you.
I'm blaming her.
John Carter?
John Carter is not a horror film, sir.
What?
I will not. What? No. Correction. I did not make you watch the Matt Damon movie. Lance from Texas made us watch the Matt Damon. Okay, I had no control over that. I'm not going to call either one of them a horror movie, ma'am. It's just because it has. So is Mac and Me. E.T. Are those horror movies? Just because it has an alien in it doesn't make it a horror movie. Am I right? And technically, it's not even an alien movie because he's the human and he's the alien. Think about that. I just blew your mind. All right, then. $25 Patreon donation gets you John Carter. Oh, is there another John Carter? Oh, you just want to talk about Taylor Kitsch, don't you? Okay, then. All right. See, now the panties are getting wet. All right. We got a fucking movie. Let's talk about a horror movie, shall we?
Yeah.
One where people get killed and stuff.
I know.
Not just jumping over mountains, but with their shirts off. What? All right. Which one? Then you don't have to tell me. I know exactly which one you're talking about. All right, here we go. There's that. That's right, inmates. We are talking about The Burrowers. This one is from 2008. It came in at 5.7. You were close. 5.7 stars. 5.7 stars.
That was a perfect 5.7.
Which I think is, I actually find that to be a little bit low for The Burrowers. 5.7 stars on IMDb. This one's written and directed by J.T. Petty. Does that name ring any bells to anybody? J.T. Petty?
No.
There's another movie out there called Soft for Digging. And it's an independent film, but it's actually pretty good. It's low budget as shit. Definitely worth a watch if you can get your hands on it. Also by J.T. Petty. It stars Clancy Brown. We all know that name?
Yes, he looks like the Pearl.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, yes. I could totally see that. The difference, though, is the voice. I feel like Clancy Brown could bring a woman to orgasm just by, like, stern commands. You're thinking sexual thoughts, and your panties are getting moist now, or I will beat it out of you. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. Clancy Brown, of course, probably most notable as the most brutal of the prison guards in Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
What else do we know him from? John dies at the end. He was the crazy psychic guy.
What was that called?
Which one?
Oh. Officer, what's that movie called?
Mystic River? Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell. He is not in Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell, parole officer. I believe. Bad Boys? No. Bad Boys has Will Smith in it. Oh, he's on death row. Fucking yes. It's I know like his girlfriend. Oh, Dead Man Walking.
No,
No.
no.
Ah,
I'm pretty sure it's
Bad Boys has Will Smith and Martin Lawrence.
parole officer.
All right, parole officer. Stop talking. We haven't even started talking about sex, Connor. So give us a second. Give us a second to get to sex, and then you can tell us to stop talking about sex. All right. Anyway, it stars Clancy Brown, William Mapother, and Jocelyn Donahue. Now, this takes place in the Dakota Territories, circa 1878. So we are what?
You forgot the main guy that we all hate.
Who?
From the
Yeah.
the little bitty guy.
The little bitch.
Oh.
That was married to the girl that was could have been his daughter.
I don't feel like he was one of the main characters in this.
What's
He was a piece.
his name anyway?
I know him as Looney Bin Jim from Punisher Warzone. He's a piece of shit. I mean,
He's like,
yeah, he's a short guy, but
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a wonderful human being, but he is typecast as pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And whoever you are, I apologize. I'm sure
He's
you're
great at what he does.
I'm sure you're a wonderful human being,
I'd
but
still give you
I would give you a Knuckles because you played Looney Bin Jim, and that is fucking nutso. So we're in the Dakota Territories, circa 1878. Now, this is just on the heels of the Civil War. What we're doing is it's kind of a manifest destiny look at American history, which is pretty gnarly. Hi, Padded Room. Sorry, I'm late. Sorry, we're late.
Yeah, we're late too.
We're the late ones here, Odd Mother. So sorry about that. Now, this is a weird time in American history where we're kind of in between wars and we're rolling from one and we're trying to roll right into the next one. And we're getting from the Civil War into Manifest Destiny. So all of the vitriol and the hatred that we had towards each other during the Civil War kind of just got like a nice cheese spread right onto the Native Americans, which is fucked up. I agree 100%. But this is where our story picks up. And there is, I mean, this isn't really like a satirical look at that time period, but it is more of a call it an uneasy glance at the past, is what I'd say, for lack of a better term. So what we have is a kind of a prairie home companion type of a little house on the prairie situation, which is all good. We have like an Irish immigrant who's there, and he is trying to build the nerve to go and ask the father of his girlfriend, for lack of female interest, or permission to ask her to marry him. And he's like, you know, running through the speech in the mirror and getting himself all hyped up for this. Yeah. Now, the night before he's going to lay this on the old man, some shit goes down at the old homestead. And, you know, like her dad is like ushering them all into the storm cellar and, you know, turn the lights off. And he's blaming everything. Everything gets blamed on Native Americans here. Now, I was more apt to believe that Pumpkinhead was behind this whole shit because this felt like a very Pumpkinhead attack was going down. And if Ed Harley was on the scene, then I would know that this is definitely Pumpkinhead. It's not Pumpkinhead though. So that's what happens. He rolls up the next morning with like his, you know, Sunday best on. He's like, okay, Mr. So-and-so, I would like to speak to you about your daughter and her prospects of marriage and so on. So gets there, everybody's dead or missing, which is fucked up. The neighbors are all dead. The family to which she belonged completely missing. Now this is gnarly, but this is a point in time in American history where everything got blamed on Native Americans. So because we have a family of dead folk and a family that is MIA, we have to assume that the natives have either killed them or dragged them off, or Gallow Walkers with Wesley Snipes. How dare you talk to me, sir, about Gallow Walkers? We've already done that, parole officer, and it is no good. It's bad. That's a bad one. Regardless. So now our Irish immigrant is like, oh, fuck, I got to go find my girlfriend. And we got a little, like a little flashback of him giving her this Celtic pendant thing and stuff like that. So he goes and he starts, you know, kind of rounding himself up a little posse to go after the natives that probably took the girlfriend and her sisters and stuff like that. So the first homestead or whatever you want to call it that he comes to is a family having a picnic out on the prairie or whatever that is there, and it's a guy by the name of Mr. Parchard. I get blamed for that shit, and I didn't do. You must be Native American, Connor. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. I hope you didn't run off with any white women. This is getting ugly, man. This is getting ugly. Connor, I love you. I hope you didn't get blamed for anything serious, unless it's like a fart, because I'll blame a fart on you. If I cut one loose in a room, one of these two, I don't know anything about it. That's why I have a dog. That's why I have dogs, Connor. I fart the place up. I always blame the dogs. Nobody knows the difference. I just have to do the move where I cough real loud when I fart. All right. Anyway, this is getting silly. High Plains Drifter, Clint Eastwood. That's not a horror movie either, parole officer. There's a lot of killing in RoboCop. Is that a horror movie?
Yes,
it is. It is. Now that I don't know why I used that as an example. Rambo's more of a revenge thing, I would say. That's if Sylvester Stallone gets raped, that is a fucking horror movie. Because
who would do that?
Whoever's holding that dude down. It's not a group of kids. I'll tell you that right now.
It's Arnold.
It is somebody with some fucking guns on them. Good Lord. It's like a prison situation or something. I don't know. All right. Anyway, back to the goddamn movie, you savages. All right. So the family is good. The neighbors are all dead. The family is gone. He rounds up the neighbor, Mr. Purchard. And then from there, they go and they get another guy by the name of John Clay, played by Clancy Brown. Now, John Clay is like the badass of this crew. He's like, okay, I know natives and I know what's going on here, and this is pretty gnarly. There's a movie called Sex Gallery. I believe I've seen that on Pornhub, Connor. So that's kind of wacky, and they're all ready to go. Now, Purchard brings his stepson with them, and this is at the behest of the kid's mother, who he's trying to get on top of. And this is kind of, I'm going to put this kid probably about 14, you think? The actor was a bit older, but for the purposes of our story, I'm going to put him 14 or 15-ish. That's cool. She's like, hey, you got to take care of my kid or I'm not going to have sex with you when you get back. And he's like, I will watch out for that dude. Mm-hmm. So they all go riding off. And then just outside of there, they rendezvous with a military convoy that is headed in the general same direction. Now, this is where our fuckface of the movie comes in. And this is a guy by the name of Captain Henry Victor. Now, correct. Doug Hutchinson. I remember him more prominently from Punisher Warzone, in which he played Looney Bin Jim. And there's other movies. He always plays a fucko, though. Green Mile. He was a right dick. Other movies, he's always doing shitty stuff, and he does not.
He's great at those roles.
He's great at doing shit. Let's reach out to him. We're gonna reach out to Doug Hutchinson on Twitter, and we're gonna.
If he's struggling, we'll
I want to know why he gets typecast as such a fucko all the time. Because whatever, it's painful. So I hope anyway. That's great. All right, so he's the captain of a. Military unit, and they're headed in the same direction. So he knows Clancy Brown's character, John Clay. So he's like, John Clay, hey, what? And he's like, hey, we got a family over here got taken by the natives. We need to go track them down and get them back. And he's like, well, okay, that just happens to be my specialty.
Yeah.
So off they go. Everything's cool for like the first day. And now our Irishman guy by the name of Coffee is getting very anxious because he wants to catch up to the quote unquote tribe that took his girlfriend, and he's like pushing forward. We meet another character, a black guy by the name of Callahan, who happens to be the cook. They call him Walnut, and I feel like there's some kind of a racial connotation there, but I don't understand it exactly.
Yeah.
So he's like, why do they? Okay, you want to break that down for us? They're like, he's like, I'm a free man, and I was a slave,
Okay,
but
there could have been two,
okay,
because maybe he wasn't.
okay.
Or, maybe it's stereotype package.
He had a small one. Is that what you're saying, or a big one?
The walnuts are big.
I feel like kielbasa would be a better name
Yeah.
for him if that was the case.
Well, the walnuts would be for the ball, so.
We're going in a whole other direction here. I don't understand any of this. But they call him Walnut, but the premise of this was that he was a slave that was free and is now a private contractor that works for the army, not enlisted, as a cook. So he's just kind of like a hired hand coming along to cook the meals and stuff.
Not as a slave.
Not as a slave. He can leave anytime he wants, or he can actually be fired and he can just go off on his own. So everything's kind of cool for a minute or two. Out on the prairie, range, whatever you want to call it, they come across one singular Native American who's out there minding his own damn business with his horse. And this prick, Henry Victor, is like, well, let's see if he knows anything. Now, the best way to do that is to start shooting at him, apparently, apprehend him, and then cut off one of his toes.
Oh, man.
I don't recall them asking him any questions at all. They just cut off his toes and then started, like, basically torturing this poor dude.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I don't know anything. I don't know what you're talking about, white family. I'm out here minding my own business, and you guys are shooting at me.
Yeah, kill my horse.
Kill my fucking horse, for Christ's sakes. How am I supposed to get home now? They torture him for, like, a good 12 hours. Callahan actually tries to help the dude out. He gives him some food. We get there's more racial tension here because Victor Henry has like a Native American assistant who is like a guide type of a dude, and he's doing the translating for the solo Native American that they found out on the range. And the solo guy is telling them that they're all going to die because there's another tribe out there that lives underground, calls themselves the Burrowers. And they're all gonna die. So fuck them anyway, and you can torture me all you want. You're all gonna get killed by the fucking Burrowers. So eat a bag of dicks. All right, that's scary stuff. Next day, well, actually, the night of, two of the military guards that are posted to watch over the camp while everybody else is sleeping gets killed. Well, they don't. They do get killed, but they get taken away. So Victor Henry wakes up the next morning and thinks he has a couple deserters on his hands. We get a scene that night of them being killed by something, and it's pretty gnarly.
And they leave circles in the ground.
They leave like these holes in the ground, but with like crop circles around them in the whatever you call that, the prairie grass, weeds, whatever. I don't know if there's a word for that. So that's kind of gnarly. But Coffee and Pritchard are kind of picking this up, and they're like, what? This is very strange. What is this shit? I don't know. Now, at this point, Victor Henry is really into fucking with Native Americans. Hang out with me, Connor. This is going to make sense in the end, I promise.
Bear with us.
So at this, our core group, which is Pritchard, John Clay, Coffee, and I think that was it, and the kid, the 14-year-old kid. They're like, dude, we're trying to.
Dobie?
What's his name? Toby?
Dobie.
I think Dobie. Toby or Dobie?
Dobie.
We're gonna go with Dobie.
Yeah.
Which makes him sound like a doofus.
Yeah.
If my name was Dobie, I would go by Toby because that sounds a little bit more official. Regardless, they're like, dude, this fucking military group is way more into torturing Indians and less into finding families that have vanished. So I think this is about the time that we go ahead and get the fuck out of here. So they go off on their own, and they're their own group now, which is good because fuck those guys. Everything's cool. They take off. They're following these weird spiral holes in the ground, and they're like, okay, this clearly leads to something. So they get going. They come to a abandoned wagon, I guess is what it would be, and it's got a bunch of shit in it, like people's belongings, as if somebody were utilizing this wagon, and they just at some point just said fuck it and just walked off without the wagon. So they're like, well, this is fucking weird because maybe they got robbed, but nobody, all their stuff, all their valuables are here, but then they just left, or so they're kind of leaning towards Native American raiders, but at the same time they're like, why wouldn't they take all their clothes and shit? I don't. That's like that's the whole point of raiding somebody is to take their shit. That's very weird. So while they're kind of pondering this, we break into a weird game of throw rocks at a tree.
Yeah.
Hey, you're hard pressed for entertainment out on the old range. You know,
no video game.
It's either that or gay sex. I saw Brokeback Mountain. You know, that's why I don't hang out with Buddy out on the range anymore. He's always like, "Oh, I'm bored. Are you bored? I'm really bored. I just got to do something over here." You know. Notice I reach this way and not this way. So they start throwing rocks at the tree, and of course the kid can't hit the tree, so he goes to pick up a rock. When he picks up the rock, he notices like a tuft of hair sticking out of the ground. He's like, "Hey, there's some hair. That's kind of fun." So he goes to pull the hair, and like a piece of scalp comes out of the ground with the hair. And he's like, "Oh, fuck, it's a fucking skull." Gnarly. So everybody goes running over there, and they start kind of sifting through the dirt, and they find a chick, a reasonably attractive young lady, kind of half-ass buried alive. Not really buried per se, but like
paralyzed.
Yeah, like paralyzed. She's alive. She's breathing. And it's like somebody just kicked a bunch of dirt on her and then just left her there, which is kind of fucked up. They dig her up and they're like, "Hey, this is a fairly attractive young lady. What's going on here?" And then they start like hearing like a scratching sound. So they're like, "Oh, there's something inside her." But then they take her shoe off and she has like the use of one toe on her foot. And that's all she can move is one toe. And they can't quite figure out what they think. Maybe she's in a coma or something like that. So they hang out for the night. Everything's cool. That night, Callahan actually catches up with them. The black guy from the military encampment. He's like, "Oh, those guys pissed me off. Fuck them. I'm gonna hang with you guys." They're like, "All right, come on, you can hang with us." So he's now part of our group. And that night, everything is kind of weird. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but he shows up. He's there. Next morning, they're like, "Okay, we have this comatose hot chick. We should probably get her to a doctor or some kind of she should probably get looked at by somebody. We can't figure this shit out." So they take the 12-year-old, the 14-year-old kid, and they're like, "Hey, dude, take the wagon. Here's one horse. Why don't you go ahead and mosey on back to the military base, and maybe they can sort her out, and then we'll catch up with you on the backside." And he's like, "Okay, sounds great. I didn't want to be here anyway." Okay, now, I'm not one for like weird sexual situations, but you got yourself a 14-year-old kid, you give him a comatose hot chick, and you say, "Why don't you two go on a road trip together?" There's websites for this. Sleep creepers, I believe, is what we're talking about. It happens, Monica. It happens. And he's out on the range, for Christ's sake. He doesn't have access to YouPorn or any of that shit. So, all right, that's a bad idea. This is not the best idea we've ever had. So, but that's what they do. They load him up and they send him on his way. And now that's like a side trip going on. All right. So the next morning, hey, Damon's in the house. What's up, Damon?
Hi, David. Who are you, David?
I don't
Where are
know.
you from?
He's a swamp hunter. Welcome aboard, Damon. Swarm hunter. Good to meet you, swarm hunter, Damon. Good luck with the swarm hunting. So the next day, they all ride off, and they're still following the trail of the weird holes in the ground with the spiral grass and all that shit. Now, this is where things get pretty tricky and a little fucked up, to be honest with you. They get off the prairie or the plain or whatever it is, and they get into some woods. Now, this whole situation could have been very easily avoided right here, but they get into some woods, and they're like, "Hey, this is Sioux territory, Sioux Native American tribe. Like, that's okay. They're usually pretty friendly. We should be fine." So pretty soon they're like, "Oh shit, there's people following us through the woods here." So they come to a stop, and then like one of the Sioux Native Americans comes out, and he's like, "Hey," and then Coffee, the Irishman, is like, bang, starts shooting. I'm like, "You motherfucker, what are you doing?" The guy that was coming out of the woods was like giving them a greeting, like, "Hey, how's it going there?" And then the Coffee just starts shooting. I almost said Connor. Connor didn't shoot at anybody. She's a wonderful young lady. Coffee, the Irishman of the
She
group.
gets blamed for everything.
I know. Well, not that. Hey, Connor, you're not getting blamed for this. This was the Irishman's fault, not yours. He just starts shooting, and they're like, "You motherfucker! What are you doing? You don't start shooting at them. That was a greeting. He was going to say what's up." And now they think that we're pissed off at them. So he's like, "Oh God, I'm so sorry." He falls off his horse, gets kicked in the face by another guy's horse, as he deserves.
Mhm.
And they're like, "All right, you piece of shit, just get back on your horse. We're going to push on."
Too late now.
Yeah. So they're like, "Okay." And then John Clay's like, "We don't sleep, we don't eat, we don't drink until we find it." And then boom, he gets shot in the neck.
Man.
The natives have like reformed and are now officially pissed off at these guys, as they should be.
Yeah.
So big firefight. John Clay gets killed, which eliminates him from the equation. So now we're left with Pritchard, Coffee, and Callahan, and they're all like hunkered down behind a dead horse for cover.
Mhm.
This little firefight / standoff lasts all day and all night. And at the end of the night, they decide they're going to start a raging forest fire to get them out of there. So that's what they do. Big forest fire, and then that allows our three heroes to leave.
Mhm.
Cut back to our 14-year-old kid, horny, mind you. Yes, that becomes a thing. And his comatose hot chick, who are now bedding down for the night somewhere out on the prairie.
Yeah, they are.
Now, I'm a gentleman myself, and I make it a point not to take liberties with comatose young ladies.
But
This guy, on the other hand, not Buddy, but the character in question is like, "Well, I'm just gonna lay you down here on the dirt, and I'm gonna just lay you down on the dirt here." And to be fair, he's fairly innocent about it. He gives her like a kiss on the lips, but when he does that, he hears her toe scraping again, like, "Hey, get off me, you prick! I didn't give you consent to kiss me, you fuckface." That would creep me right out.
yeah.
That might be a thing, though. I never if I acted like I was in a coma, and then my wife came in and jerked me off or something. I'm gonna explore that. I think that there might be something there. Now that I think about it, that's gonna be a hard sell for my wife, but that's something I'm gonna work on. So I'm not gonna move an inch, okay? You just come in here, and I'm cut off for a month. All right. Anyway, he gives her an innocent kiss on the mouth, and then he's like, "Okay, we're gonna go to bed." And they both lay down. They got the campfire going. They get attacked that night.
Oh yeah.
And this is where we get our first glimpse of these fucking creatures.
Mhm.
These things are bananas. Now, their method of attack is very strange because what they do is give you just like a little, like playing card size scratch on your neck. It's not even that deep. It's not going to kill you. But then once they open you up, they vomit on the scratch, I think, right? It looked like a vomit to me.
Yeah.
And then whatever the fucking poison is or enzymes or whatever gets in you, and you are paralyzed. You are laid out. And that's pretty fucked up. And then, and then what they do is they drag you, I don't know, like a quarter mile down the road, and then they half-ass bury you, and then, because now that's what's happening to the kid. He's buried like 8 inches under the ground, and he can just like move this finger. So he's like trying to scratch his way out with just the one finger. But he's like, his eyes are open and his mouth is open, and it's fucked up, and it's scary as shit, I'm sure. I don't want
That would
that.
be pretty creepy.
That would be fucking scary as shit. If you're gonna bury me alive, you at least got to put me in a box or something. You don't just throw dirt on me. I think I at least deserve that amount of respect. Where you could at least put me in some kind of a sack. Put me in a sack.
Or
Don't
bad.
don't just kick dirt on me. Not if I only have this finger. I ain't gonna do shit with this finger. I'll just suffocate. I'll suffocate. All you're gonna do is get dirt in your mouth and your lungs. Yeah.
I would rather be buried in dirt than a box.
I'll take the box. I'll take the box. I'll suffocate, but I'll get monoxide poisoning on the way out.
At least
I don't want that. I don't want that. That's why I want the box, so I don't get pecked at by fucking vultures and ravens and shit. Fuck that. Or worms, bugs. You think about that. Think about bugs. What kind of bugs are going to get inside you? Disgusting. When I die, just throw my. Well, Connor. Okay. Clearly, you have a bit of a self-esteem issue there, my dear. But we'll talk about that later. So he's dead. He's out of the equation. Well, I mean, he's not dead. He wishes he was dead.
Oh yeah.
The young lady is dead, and then we're going to cut to them the next morning. He's just like a mound of dirt. She's now being picked at by vultures, which is fucking gross. It's like full on dead. She's not even in a coma anymore. They're like pecking her eyeballs out and shit. Cut back to our explorers. Die when I die. No, we got you, Connor. We got you. No, not at all. Or a weird earlobe. If you have a weird earlobe, then we don't want any part of you. So the next, and now our trio of heroes is back on the prairie trying to track down the natives again. Now Pritchard has like the most experience out of the group, other than John Clay, who's now dead. They bury John Clay, and then they're back on the trail. The plan at this point is to head towards the reservation, where they think that the friendlier of the natives might have some information as to what the fuck is going on here. It's not my fault that I have self-esteem issues, though. Well, obviously not. It never is, Connor. But we're not here to psychoanalyze you, okay? Connor, I could use a little help myself. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've got a few screws loose. I freely admit that. Maybe we can figure each other out. I don't know. We're talking about a goddamn horror movie here. So now they're back on the trail. Everything's cool. That night, some shit goes down.
Oh yeah.
Now we get a little bit bigger of a glimpse at these goddamn things. And at first, I was like, these things have bunny ears, right? When you first see them, because like the first night they're kind of creeping around the brush. Callahan and Coffee wake up, and Pritchard is nowhere to be found. And they're like, that motherfucker. He set us up. He's using us as bait, so the natives come down and attack us, and then he's going to attack them. But we're fucked. We're fucked in the meantime. So, but then they hear like his gun go off, and Pritchard's off in the grass somewhere, getting messed with by these things. Now we kind of get a little bit of a better glimpse at these things. And for the first time I saw this, I could have swore that they had bunny ears. And if they actually did have bunny ears,
that's just so.
I'm probably going to sign off at this point because they don't, but it does look like it. They're Caucasian looking in a weird way, very low to the ground. Like I said, they do appear to have bunny ears, but there's a reason for that, and it's not actually bunny ears. And at this point, we kind of see their faces. They look vaguely gray, like alien gray-esque, like with the slimy, like very. They look like they would stink. They probably stink. Like a mole person, perhaps. But we don't get that good of a look at him just yet. They attack Pritchard. They drag him off. They give him the scratch, and I think he got a little bit of the vomit on him, not the full dose, but enough to fuck him up for a minute. At that point, Callahan and Coffee wake up and they get a little firefight going on. Scare these fuckers off. Bring Pritchard back, and he's like, shit, man, I can't feel my hand all of a sudden. My leg's kind of numb. And he's like, oh, well, it'll be fine. Once we get moving, I'll be okay. So he's got the scratch on his neck, though, and that's not a good sign. Next morning comes around. They get up. They get moving. If you're following the track of Pritchard, he's not looking very good at all.
No.
He's like already starting to lose color, and he's like getting a little like woozy and delirious a little bit, starting to get paranoid about what Callahan and Coffee are saying about him. So the plan at this point, they've heard stories from the various Native Americans that they've dealt with where there's like another tribe called the Burrowers. And the Burrowers use this weird poison. So they need to figure out what's going on with the Burrowers and where they can get more information on that. Possibly how to fix Pritchard. So the plan is to head towards the Ute Nation, i.e. Utah, down south, and get with them because apparently they have more experience in dealing with these fuckers. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. Some weird stuff going on out there. Forget about it. Where's the weed when you need it? I don't know, Connor. I don't know. So they're headed down south. They come across, this was not a dumb movie, parole officer.
A dumb movie.
They come across one Native American young lady out on the prairie all by herself. Now, Pritchard speaks Native American, so they have a conversation. She introduces herself as Faithful, it's her name, and she does not like white people, rightfully so. And her husband and her whole family were murdered by the Burrowers the night before. She had to kill her husband so that he could avoid the feeding. Right. Now, from there, we get a little bit of an explanation as to what the Burrowers are and what their fucking problem is. Thing is, they show up every 3 generations, and they were pretty reliable as far as just feeding on bison until Whitey showed up and started killing off all the bison. So the Burrowers then had to find other sources of food, i.e. peoples. That fucking sucks. Now, I guess this is a Western centric type of a thing, because if you can make it across the Mississippi into the East Coast, then you're good to go. So that's why most of the native tribes fled east to get away from these fucking things. But those that didn't are now having to deal with the shit. Half Skull of the Half Skull movie ratings. Any idea what the hell? I don't know what you're talking about, parole officer. Oh. I will have a 2.5 skull on the rocks. I mean, all right. So that now we got a little bit of a thing, but Pritchard is getting worse and worse. So Faithful is like, he's got the fucking scratch and he's got the shit on him, and he's getting worse. They're gonna smell him, and they're gonna find him, and they're gonna kill all of us. So I vote for leaving his ass here, and we move right along. Now the problem is that Pritchard is the only one that speaks Native American. Faithful doesn't speak English, so he's translating on her behalf, and he's like, "She is complimenting my hairdo. She thinks that Ben Affleck is an underrated performer."
I wondered if that was real.
It sounded like it. Yeah. I would buy that.
I'd go with it.
Yeah, I would buy that. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but I'd sign off on that. So they like take Faithful prisoner in a weird way. And like, she's coming with us to the Utes because, you know. And apparently, as far as Native American tribes went, Utes were like even hated among other Native American tribes, because they're like, we're going to the Utes, and she's like, they're even crazier than white people. So no.
That's a good idea.
This created a skull horror movie rating system. Time to market it for the show.
So we should have 5 skulls.
Okay.
Heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be cool.
All right, we'll do that. We're gonna rate this on a 1 to 5 skull head at the end of the walkthrough here.
Oh.
Well done, parole officer. We're gonna skull head it up. All right. So
yeah,
from there, we keep moving, and then she's all pissed off. She wants nothing to do with this. We get bed down for the night. They get attacked again that night. And now Pritchard is completely out of his shit. He's like barely alive, and he's just got a pistol and he's waving around. He accidentally shoots Callahan in the leg, which is fucked. Yeah. Now, not only is Pritchard almost out of the equation, but Callahan is wounded and possibly crippled. So the next morning they wake up, they're like, dude, we got to haul ass straight for the Utes and hope that they can somehow sort us out. So that's what they do. Get to the Ute Nation just as the sun is setting. It's now nighttime. A couple of Utes show up. Youths, not youths. There's a little My Cousin Vinny reference there. A couple of Utes show up, and they're like, hey, your boy here is infected with the shit, and it's okay. We're going to fix it, though. We can fix it. And they start freaking out. They're like, what? Yeah. And they kind of make this weird analogy about little fish being used to catch big fish. Yeah. And what they're saying is that they want to use Pritchard as bait to catch the Burrowers. And he's like, no, I don't want to be bait. I don't want to be bait. And the Utes keep saying, we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. This, of course, shows Coffee. He's like, oh, fuck. But just as the Utes are leaving, they throw him like a bag of trinkets, like, hey, hang out, we'll be right back. And in this bag of trinkets is the weird Celtic pendant that he gave his girlfriend at the beginning of the movie. So he's like, oh, fuck. She's dead, man. She's dead. Sorry. I deeply apologize for that. But that's what's going to happen. She's already dead. So he's like, well, I guess we can go home then. Ah, fuck Pritchard, though. All right, I'm going to go after Pritchard. Now, the Utes told him that if they followed him, they would kill him. So he's like, I'm going to go after him anyway. Faithful and Callahan kind of bed down for the night. Coffee goes after the Utes and Pritchard. Gets to where they are. They've got an elaborate trap set up where they are using Pritchard as bait, as they said they would. And they've actually laced him with this weird poison. So they actually want the Burrowers to show up, eat Pritchard, ingest the poison, and then they've got a bunch of spears laid out that they're going to then spear the Burrowers with. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Would have worked perfectly if it wasn't for those damn meddling kids. Coffee shows up, starts shooting at the Utes, kills one right on the spot, grievously wounds another one. Now here comes the Burrowers, and they just kind of gang tackle Pritchard and start eating him alive, pretty much. He's fucked up, man. It's probably the best thing for him is just to die at this point. At that point, that slows the Burrowers down, so they're all sluggish. And the one half-assed surviving Ute is grab those spears and start sticking them. And he's like, what? And then he steps in a bear trap. And he's like, oh, fuck. And then eventually he gets himself out of the bear trap, realizes what the surviving Ute just said, and starts spearing the Burrowers. Gets most of them, and then he's like, I'm tired and I don't want to do this shit anymore. And he's running out of spears. But then the sun comes up, and this is where we realize that the Burrowers are
vampires,
more or less. I mean, they're very wacky-looking vampires. Naked praying mantis vampires in the Old West. I wouldn't call them vampires. I mean, when the sun comes up, they all melt. Is what happens.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were vampires. I felt like they just had a vibe. That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
They had a vitamin D deficiency, and then they all melt in the sunshine. So fuck those things anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the end of that. Coffee then limps his way back with the Ute that he killed or wounded grievously back to the camp where Faithful is tending to Callahan and now the other Ute. And Coffee's like, it's 2 days' ride to the military base. I'll go if you want me to. I'll bring back a doctor. Callahan's like, yeah, please go. Just get the fuck out of here. So he rides 2 days out, gets a doctor. Unfortunately, the doctor comes with the same goddamn military unit that they abandoned 4 days ago with Looney Bin Jim as the captain. So that fucking sucks. Coffee on the way back to the camp kind of passes out. When he wakes up, they're there, and they've already hung Faithful and the surviving Ute. And even worse news, as if that's not bad enough, Callahan had to have his leg amputated and died in the process.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much, he's like, what the
all alone.
This is a worse ending than Night of the Living Dead, really, because it was all for nothing. And I got my ass kicked and almost killed by these worm fucking things, and my girlfriend's dead, and
nobody's gonna believe it.
Nope. Nobody gives a shit. And Looney Bin Jim is like, well, Callahan was on his last leg anyway, no pun intended. He was talking about these earthworm creatures that come out and kill people. He was clearly delirious. So it's probably better that he died anyway. And he's like, oh, fuck him. Fuck off. Yeah. Fuck off, man. I'm sorry. And that's pretty much the end of your movie. That's The Burrowers from 2008.
Well, once the credits started.
Oh, was there more?
Yeah, there was more.
Oh, I didn't know there was a credit.
Yeah.
What happened?
Basically, more of those.
I was hoping that what they would do, or what they were alluding to, is that when the army camped there that night, they would all come out and eat the army guys.
That would have been cool.
That would have been dope, and that's what I was hoping for. I left it once the credit starts. I took off. So that's your movie, Monica. How did you feel about the Burrowers? Good show.
I've seen it a couple of times. My only issue is it's too dark. It's too dark to where you can't kind of see what's happening.
I get that.
That's the only thing.
I get that.
Mine's the way how cheesy they look.
The creatures.
Yeah.
I get that too. This is 2008.
Acting was great.
Acting was solid.
Pretty good cast.
Do you
Yeah.
think the creatures were CGI'd? I feel like
Oh yeah.
You think so?
parts of them were. I feel like.
Thing
I feel.
Maybe that part.
I feel.
For people.
I was gonna say. I feel like the close-ups were like people or some kind of a puppet type of a practical effect.
Mhm.
But when you get the full picture, that's where I felt like the CGI came in. And it's 2008 CGI, mind you, so it's not the best that you can get. Storyline solid. It's basically aliens in the Wild West, right? More or less. Yeah. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There are worse formulas that you can follow. I think it's a good show, man.
I do.
It's on Tubi TV right now, as Connor alluded to. If you got an hour and a half to kill and you wanna see Looney Bin Jim with a handlebar mustache being a racist and a misogynist prick, this would be a good way to go for you.
This movie is actually
Right?
watching it, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I got scared. But then the second and third time, I was kind of like, I want to see more, but if you watch it for the first time, you watch it in the dark.
And don't be turned off by what appears to be bunny ears. They're not actually bunny ears. The first time you see these goddamn things, they're coming out of the grass and they have like two little, like what appears to be bunny ears on them. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
dude, what are you? Okay, I get it.
Mr. Bunny.
I get it. They're burrowers and, bunnies burrow and stuff. But hey, no, not with the bunny ears. It's actually their knees because of the mantis legs. Their legs come up behind them. But the first time you see them, you're like, yeah, it's a bunny ear. It's fucking bunnies. The Descent?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
The white guys.
We're gonna do Dead Birds pretty soon. There's a very similar creature in Dead Birds.
Okay.
So part of the Western horror movie month here in the padded room.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's about. You guys got anything else on the old?
Yeah.
What?
I'm gonna give this 3.5.
Oh, how many skull heads you want to give this fucking thing? 3.5 for Monica.
3.5.
Buddy, how say you on the skull heads? Courtesy
3
of
skull heads.
3 skull heads, courtesy of the parole officer. I'm going to come in a little bit higher on this. I'm going to give this 4 skull heads. I'm deducting a skull head for a lack of boobies. Another skull, or you know what? I'm going to deduct a half a skull head for lack of boobies, and another half a skull head for. I felt like we could have had a little more gore. There was hardly any in this. And
It took a long time to get there.
well, I mean, even still, when they attacked you, they really just put like a paper cut on your neck.
Yeah.
And that's like
But
the,
that
I
was
think-
the suspense of
I think the scariest
I
part
would-
was the beginning.
with the pumpkin head sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty
That was
gnarly
intense.
because you get a lot of sound effects there.
Yes.
Inmates, check this one out. Psycho Bunnies, you too. It's worth a watch, right? It's
Yes.
worth a watch if you're in the mood for like a period horror piece. Not Wild West, but like an old Westy kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Check it out. It's worth watching, I'd say. I don't think he looked young.
Looked young?
I think he looked very fit.
Oh, young for you, yeah.
And it's she loves old men. It's creepy. It's creeping me out. When she comes over, I have to put all my family pictures away because my grandfather, my father, and father-in-law too. Like, hey, put all that shit away. Monica's coming over. Suddenly the pictures start coming up missing and all kinds of weird stuff. Why is Monica still in the bathroom? You said that was your great uncle? I was going to borrow that one for a second. What is that? His military outfit? I like that. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Join us next week for The Win here in Padded Room podcast, Western Horror Month, courtesy of Tony over at the Patreon page. We're going to take us a little break, and we'll come back with some other stuff.
Can I tell them where to find them?
Yeah, go ahead.
fmovies.com.
F Movies, also available on Vudu and Google Play. Yeah, you do. You got to rent. It's like $3 to rent or something like that. It looks good. I have not seen The Wind yet, but I have seen Demon Wind, and that is not good.
I've seen your Demon Wind.
I give that
anyway.
a half. You're gonna smell it again if you don't get away. That's a bad movie. But we're gonna the trailers for The Wind look pretty good. We checked those out before we started the show. Definitely worth a watch. Thank you guys very much again for joining us. PaddedRoomPodcast.com is where you find anything you need to know about us, our Patreon links, our various other subsidiary shows. We got a whole network of podcasts over there, other shows going on. Other than that, yeah, thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next week with The Wind.
The Wind.
Okay, bye.